What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a massive day for all NIO investors, as NIO has their notorious earnings reports tomorrow. So I'm going to break down why it's going to be very big, how this may affect NIO's share price, and what you should be watching for tomorrow. Now, before I break anything down though, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NEO community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each valued at up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free NEO share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends today, so make sure you check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So NEO is actually up about 0.64% for the day, and we could actually tell that NEO wanted to start pumping a little bit more. It wanted to start pushing up, but we did see the whole market actually tank today. We saw the market take a bit of a hit, and that did slow NEO down a bit. But one of the things I mentioned in my previous videos was it looked like NEO was trying to base between 9 and 9.12. So NEO was trying very hard to base here. It actually bounced off 9.12 once again, and that's actually a pretty good sign that NEO might try to push up and fill this gap very soon and get closer to $10. And I do believe that is most likely what's going to happen. But before I actually break down why, we have to look at what's going on for tomorrow. So for tomorrow, NEO actually has its earnings on Wednesday right over here before the market opens in the United States. That's going to be very important because NEO's earnings is going to dictate what ends up happening to the share price, how investors end up reacting to it, and what guidance tells us about the company for the upcoming quarter. Now, looking at the data right now, for the fiscal quarter, sorry, the forecast is about a loss of 26 cents per share. That's what we're actually expecting compared to last year. That's actually a big improvement, and we'll have to wait and see how this actually goes. I do know that NEO was hit with some issues going into the last quarter. It was a little bit difficult for them to keep up with the supply constraints, but despite that, NEO still managed to give us over 40,000 deliveries during Q4. On top of that, we can see right over here, many analysts are still expecting some pretty nice growth going into the future. They are actually seeing the earnings per share once again in very, very similar states. And on top of that, I want to note that revenue is expected to be at $7.3 billion, which I think NEO could come close to. Now, when it comes to other pieces of data, many analysts are talking about NEO potentially making a nice move, and they are talking about the fact that NEO has seen some demands drop for their EC6 and other models, but they actually countered it with the ET7 and the ET5, which were launched in 2022. Now, that's a pretty good sign for some nice volume growth for the majority of the year, but the real question is, could they maintain this going forward? They delivered about 122,000 vehicles in 2022. The real consensus right now is us seeing them sell over 245,000 for 2023. We're going to see more news about that during earnings. We're also going to learn about what their plan is for new products coming out, what the plan is amidst the potential slowdown in demand in China, and what their expectations are for the next quarter, for this quarter, and for the entire year. So we're going to see some very interesting plans by NEO. We're going to learn about what NEO actually sees going on for the future. And also, they're going to be questioned about January. NEO had a very weak January to start off the year. Right over here, you can see NEO actually only got 8,500 deliveries for the month of January so far. Last January, they actually got almost 10,000. So it's a bit of a decrease. That's showing signs that demand is actually not necessarily keeping up, and NEO has to improve on this. So I do think NEO is going to address this a lot. And what's great about NEO, however, is if you look at their historical data, when NEO has big misses like this, when NEO struggles for a month, they have a tendency of bouncing back even harder during the next month. And there's a good chance that NEO is going to do that, since they are expected to give us over 245,000 deliveries for the calendar year of 2023. So that's a good sign. We're going to learn more about NEO's products, their expansion plans, whether or not they're going to make new improvements, if they have new models coming out. All that news is going to be coming out. And if anything, most of it's likely going to be a lot more bullish for the longer term. But I do believe that William Lee Bin and the NEO's board, they're going to be talking about what's going on with supply chains right now, because there is some signs of disruptions. And on top of that, we're going to be learning about what they're going to do about demand in China. What's their game plan? We're going to learn so much about that. It's going to be interesting. NIO had just barely above average volume at 52 million for the day. Once again, up 0.64%. And we did see a bit of an increase in the amount of shares that were shorted over the last couple of days. NIO had about 3 million shares shorted just a couple of days ago. Excuse me, sorry guys. And then for just a couple of days ago, like the day after, it's at over 7.3 million. So millions of NIO shares are being shorted right now. The shorts are piling in, and we're gonna have to just wait and see how this actually leads to their reaction going forward, whether or not earnings causes more shorts to cover or not. On top of that, I just want to note that NIO also mentioned something else that's important. They provided new immersive sound experiences for their users, and this is awesome, awesome news as they're consistently improving their products on a daily basis. So I see very strong fundamentals in this company. For the short term, I'm not like super, super bullish on NIO, guys. I already mentioned this. I'm not like expecting NIO to just explode to all-time highs or anything like that. I don't even see NIO like rallying another like 40-50% or like too hard for the short term. I think that there is going to be more downside going into like the shorter medium term of the company, but we could get a reaction after earnings, and we are going to learn more about the longer term future based off what they say. For the longer term, guys, I'm very, very bullish. I want to make that very clear. I'm still super bullish, but now I want to break down what NIO is likely going to do. So we have this gap up here. I do think NIO has the potential to get a small pop and try to fill this gap. We could even bounce depending on how earnings goes. But if the overall market is lagging behind, it's not going to be very promising for NIO. In about 14 days, we have another CPI report coming out. That could be very bearish news for the market if that's very hot, and that could actually lead the market to actually taking a massive hit. If that happens, it's going to be bearish for NIO. So please be on the lookout for this. Now let's talk about the key levels. NIO is basing at 9.12 between there and the 9. That's where NIO's base is. It's actually doing a good job at holding that level. And we're seeing a demand zone right over there. If NIO comes below this, if we break below 9.12, which is the low for the day, then you have to watch $9 flat. If NIO breaks below 9, watch 8.75, 8.32, and finally $8 flat. Those are some important levels. If we're bullish on NIO, if NIO does break to the upside, I'm going to be watching the daily 5 EMA, which is at 9.56. We have some resistance there, maybe not too much. If we break that, I'm going to be watching this gap to get filled. So if we break 9.56 or so, I'm expecting the gap to get filled and NIO to fly to about 9.8 and almost $10. And then if we could actually break past 10, then this thing is likely going to fly all the way up to about 10.4. We have a lot of room to go all the way up to 10.4, which means NIO could actually have a big green day if we break 10. So what do I think is going to happen? Now, it really depends on earnings. What does NIO say? And it's not just the numbers, it's also guidance. If NIO does not have the best of numbers, but they managed to give us a very strong guidance that could also help the share price. Just to remind you guys, when it comes to their revenue and EPS, we're expecting $7.3 billion in their revenue. I do think that NIO is going to reach it, but I do think they're going to come a little bit short on earnings per share. That's just my guess. The reason I say that is because their margins likely got somewhat impacted by the slowdown in demand in China, and it could have actually led to even higher costs. So I'm still going to be on the very cautious side. But I don't think that a somewhat weak EPS is enough to hurt NIO like too badly. What's going to matter more is going to be the guidance. What does NIO tell us about, this quarter? What is NIO going to tell us about the longer term future, their expansion plans, how they're going to deal with issues in China? That is going to be the bigger thing for tomorrow. If NIO gives us strong guidance, they tell us it's going to be very, very awesome. Expect like 45,000 deliveries, just for example, right? I'm just throwing that number out there. But if NIO says something like that, man, the share price could actually still soar. We could see this thing fill the gap and get all the way back above 10 if they give us some very, very good news. So with that said, that's what I have for this video. Please be ready for tomorrow. By the time I'm actually talking tomorrow about all of this, I believe that this actually will be coming out and we're going to get lots of good updates for NIO by then. So thank you all for listening. Have a great day. NIO to the moon because the long-term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.